All right, we have one final topic for tonight, and that is that Sega is thinking of launching its own subscription service. So we don't have any. This is not like confirmed by Sega, but this is a story from the BBC. They say Sega is considering launching its own Netflix-like subscription service for video games, a move which would accelerate gaming's transition towards streaming. Of course, they make comparisons to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, and Sega's president Shuji Utsumi told the BBC such subscription products were very interesting, and his firm was evaluating some opportunities. We're thinking something and discussing something we cannot disclose right now, he said. So, it's, of course there's nothing like confirmed, but it sounds like they're at least talking about something, whether it's that specifically or something along those lines. There's no telling whether this would be something more along the lines of Game Pass, where they'd put like some of their brand new games as a day one thing in their service. But they're not alone in this, and even Game Pass is probably the one that is best known because of the fact that it offers games from so many different publishers. Whereas, you have other subscriptions like EA Play and Ubisoft Plus and things like that. PlayStation Plus to a lesser extent, but PlayStation Plus, you're mostly paying for the online, and then you get some games included with that. Just much less extensive than what you get with Game Pass. But I think it's also cheaper than Game Pass, probably. So, anyway, what are your thoughts on this?
So, at first I had an initial thought where I was wondering, why is this happening? But I then sort of dialed it back because I thought about it for a second, and while it's not to the same degree, they did have a moment where they were considering something before, and that was using NFTs, since that was a very hot thing several years ago. And fortunately, due to backlash from consumers, they backed off and said, "We've heard you. We're not going to do NFTs," and I was very thankful for that. So, this is just something where they could just be in a considering stage, and something might come forward, something might not come forward out of this. So that is something, just to think about. But that being said, do I think this is something that could happen? Maybe. And also, I don't know, even to a degree, as to how or what they would add to it. I don't know if it is something where it would be like Game Pass, where they have just pretty much every game available, or most modern games available, or it could be something similar to Nintendo Switch Online, where it's only classic games, or something to that degree. But granted, I feel like that would kind of be a waste. Well, actually, no. Correction. That wouldn't necessarily be a waste, because they did delist all their classic games from every store. So I actually could see them saying, yeah, this is going to be something similar to Nintendo Switch Online, where you can play all of our classic games as part of a subscription service, which I feel like is kind of scummy to do. Just removing the ability for people to just buy the games and play them. But at the same time, that's how I feel on that end. But I feel like the best case scenario would be if they just have something set up where their games are available to play if you have the service. At the same time, though, people still have the option to buy the games. Like, if they stopped making games exclusively, say if they put out, they're never going to do this, but say they put out Persona 6 and it was available only through the streaming service, and you couldn't just go and buy the game outright, I would have a problem with that. But I doubt they're going to do something like that, but I just want them to know, hey, you can have this streaming service like Game Pass, but similar to Game Pass, make sure you still have the option for people who don't want to subscribe to be able to just buy the game. But I mean, similar to Game Pass and other services, I don't dislike the option of being able to subscribe and rent out these games, but I still don't want people, namely these companies, to think that means they should just deny people the ability to play these games. Because, I mean, that's something we have seen before, and also it's very prevalent in video and TV streaming services where you can't buy these shows or movies, but you can only rent them through a subscription service. And so, and more people are also, or more companies are also not even putting their stuff on, physical. So that's another reason why I am I sort of want to be preemptive. And people say, oh, well, they're not doing anything. Well, they're not doing anything yet. So I just want to, have that caution of what could happen down the road. But I mean, just in general, I don't have a problem with it. But of course, this is still just all in the consideration phase, so we don't know what will happen moving forward. But that's pretty much everything I have.
Yeah, but I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think as long as there's still another way to actually purchase things, I don't have an issue with them doing subscription service. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous how many subscription services there are out there, but as long as they're not requiring it, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I definitely have an issue with, especially on the video side, these streaming services that say if you aren't subscribed to this, you can't watch it, period. You can't get a physical version, even, a year after the thing has already ended. Because, as one example, so when we still had Disney Plus, they did a series that was a follow-up to the Santa Claus movies with Tim Allen. It was actually really good. Like, it was legitimately great. But there's no physical version whatsoever. And I would like to get the physical version if such a thing existed, because I thought it was actually really, really good. It was like very well done. It was not trying to appeal to a modern audience. It was just a very well done thing. And I mean, like, especially the third Santa Claus movie was very cheesy and was just kind of like, okay, but it was fine. I mean, we typically will watch it every year. I'd like, the first one's a classic. The second one is pretty great too. And the third one's just like, but it's fine. But so many movies and series are just garbage nowadays that it was a breath of fresh air, because it was actually really well done. And there's no physical version, not that I can find anywhere. And it's things like that that irritate me, because I would very much like to be able to get physical versions of these things. I like to be able to actually own the stuff that I want to watch again, instead of being forced to be subscribed to some service that I don't even want. And of course, Disney Plus is one of those things where my intention is to never subscribe to them again, because they haven't put out, I mean, that's like the only thing that they put out in recent memory where it's something that I would like to watch again. Everything else has just been like, at best, mediocre. And in most cases, just something where I'm like, I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like the vast majority of the Marvel movies. In fact, I think the only Marvel movie I've watched since Endgame that I actually liked, well, I guess there's technically Spider-Man No Way Home, but that was a Sony movie as opposed to specifically a Marvel movie, even though it's part of the MCU. And that one was great. But apart from that, the only one that I watched and legitimately really liked, and I actually probably need to see if I can find a physical of it, is the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It was actually really good. And it didn't go off in any weird directions. The second one, it was better than the second one. The second one was fine, but it wasn't as good as the first one. And the third one was pretty great. So, and also, it wasn't trying to be part of the MCU exactly. Like, it's really its own independent story focused a lot on the origins of Rocket Raccoon and that sort of thing. Like how he actually went from being just a regular raccoon to being what he is, and his story was interesting. But anyway. Yeah. So that being said, going back to Sega, which was, the original topic, and the subscription services and all that, I think it could be interesting, especially if they do, if Sega does like some of their new games on the subscription service. I mean, I still wouldn't subscribe because I just don't do subscription services in general. But I do think that the idea of that could be good, especially because Sega does have a lot of really big games that they still put out. It's just not from like the classic franchises so much. You get a rare. I mean, I guess they've had some Sonic games throughout the years, but most of their old franchises are long dead, or at least dormant. And what really makes them big, though, is things made by Atlas, especially the Like a Dragon series. I know that there's some other ones, but, Atlas covers quite a few. I mean, you have Persona and Shin Megami Tensei from that. You have Metaphor ReFantazio that just came out, and, they still put out lots of good stuff. So, I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens on this front. Yeah, I don't really have anything else.
Same here.